is ASMR News. Drift off, wake up, or simply relax with the world's biggest headlines. Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett is appearing before senators in what has been billed as a contentious week of confirmation hearings. The 48-year-old conservative jurist has vowed to judge legal cases impartially, but her nomination so close to the November 3rd presidential election has sparked a political row between the Republicans and rival Democrats. Barrett's approval would cement a 6-3 conservative majority on the 9-member top court, shifting its ideological balance for potentially decades to come. President Trump picked Judge Barrett to replace liberal Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who died last month, aged 87. An Italian teenager who used the internet to spread his faith has been beatified, the final step before becoming a saint. Raly Oct, who died of leukemia in 2006, aged 15, has already been dubbed the patron saint of the internet, and if he ascends to sainthood, he would be the first saint of this millennium. Oct was placed on the path to sainthood after the Vatican ruled he had miraculously saved another boy's life. The church claimed he interceded from heaven in 2013 to cure a Brazilian boy who was suffering from a rare pancreatic disease. COVID-19 deaths in Brazil passed 150,000. The Brazilian Health Ministry reported that the death toll now stands at 150,198. The figure is the world's second highest behind the United States with 220,000 and ahead of India with 110,000. The US has almost 8 million confirmed cases, followed by India with 7.1 million and Brazil with 5.1 million. China reported 12 cases of coronavirus in a hospital that treats foreign arrivals in the eastern port city of Qingdao. More testing is underway and aims to cover the city of 9.5 million within 5 days. The cluster is China's biggest in months and illustrates the difficulty of eradicating the pathogen when outbreaks are still spreading rapidly in other countries. Other countries like Thailand and New Zealand have also maintained long stretches of virus-free periods, only to see a resurgence. New York City issued 62 tickets and more than $150,000 in fines over the weekend to people, businesses, and houses of worship who weren't following restrictions on gatherings or mask wearing and social distancing requirements. The city is struggling with its worst crisis since the virus first hit in March. Since mid-August, there has been a surge in new cases in pockets of Brooklyn and Queens, many of them in Orthodox Jewish neighborhoods. The spike prompted Governor Andrew Cuomo to issue new restrictions on large gatherings and non-essential businesses in parts of the city. Four members of the Vatican Swiss Guards, the elite and colorfully dressed corps that protects the Pope, have tested positive for the coronavirus. They are believed to be the first in the corps to test positive. The results came in over the weekend and added to the 3 other residents or citizens of the small Vatican city-state who have tested positive in recent weeks. The UK study found that more than 2/3 of people who tested positive for the coronavirus were asymptomatic on the day they took a test, indicating that silent spreading could be more prevalent than previously thought. University College London researchers studied data collected by the UK statistics body, the Office for National Statistics, which surveys households whether they have symptoms or not. The peer-reviewed study looked at 36,061 individuals who took a coronavirus test as part of the infection survey between April 26th and June 27th, 2020, finding that 86.1% of those tested positive for the virus did not report core symptoms associated with the virus, a cough, fever, or a loss of taste and or smell on the day they took a test. The UK economy grew 2.1% in August on a monthly basis versus expectations of 4.6%. It follows an expansion of 6.6% in July, 8.7% in June, and 2.4% in May, following a record 20% plunge in April. The country's emergence from lockdown measures has paved the way for a recovery, but cases of COVID-19 have been growing exponentially as a second surge appears to be underway. The British government has imposed a 10 p.m. curfew for bars and restaurants across the UK, with further restrictions expected in the coming weeks. As of Friday morning, the UK has confirmed 564,502 cases and 42,682 deaths. Japanese researchers have found that the coronavirus can stay alive on human skin for about 9 hours. By comparison, a tested strain of the more common influenza virus stayed alive for around 2 hours. The study also found that quality sanitizers can kill off both the coronavirus and influenza A in roughly 15 seconds. An Australian study has found that the coronavirus can survive on banknotes, glass, and stainless steel for up to 28 days, much longer than the flu virus, highlighting the need for cleaning and hand washing. By comparison, influenza A virus has been found to survive on surfaces for 17 days. More than 637 million people traveled to China over the past week in celebration of the country's annual Golden Week, spending an estimated 466 billion yuan, or about 69 billion US dollars. Golden Week is the convergence of two holidays: National Day, which celebrates the founding of the People's Republic of China on October 1st, 1949, and the Mid-Autumn Festival, which is set by the lunar calendar. While less than the 782 million tourists who traveled during Golden Week last year, China is celebrating the estimates as a rebound for its domestic travel industry. The Commission on Presidential Debates on Friday canceled the second pre-election showdown between President Donald Trump and Democratic challenger Joe Biden, scheduled for October 15th in Miami. Initially, the commission changed to a virtual format to protect everyone involved following the president's coronavirus diagnosis last week. Trump and his campaign protested against a virtual debate, calling the change a ploy to help Biden. Biden's campaign said it would not partake in the town hall-style debate if Trump did not show. Paul Milgrom and Robert Wilson won the 2020 Nobel Economics Prize for their work on auction theory. The Stanford University game theorists have helped in developing formulas for the sale of aircraft landing slots, radio spectrums, and emissions trading. The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences said their work benefited sellers, buyers, and taxpayers worldwide. Game theory uses mathematics to study decision-making, conflict, and strategy in social situations. Bangladesh will introduce the death penalty for rape cases following days of protests about the country's high level of sexual violence against women. There was a widespread outrage in Bangladesh last week after footage of a brutal gang assault on a 37-year-old woman went viral on social media. An investigation by Bangladesh's National Human Rights Commission found that the woman in the viral video, who was attacked in the southeastern district of Noa Kalim, had been raped repeatedly over time and terrorized. 8 men were arrested after the video emerged. At least 1,000 rapes have been reported in Bangladesh this year, activists say. But many cases go unreported because women fear they will be stigmatized, according to human rights advocates, and in cases that are reported, conviction rates are extremely low. Belarus police can now use lethal weapons in the streets, the Interior Ministry announced, due to what it described as the radicalization of mass anti-government protests. Security forces detained dozens of protesters on Sunday and used water cannons and batons to break up crowds demanding a new presidential election. Belarus, a former Soviet republic closely allied with Russia, has been rocked by street protests and strikes since authorities announced that veteran leader Alexander Lukashenko had won a contested August 9th vote. Three Libyan men killed a Nigerian worker by dousing him in petrol in Tripoli and setting him on fire in a new reported attack on migrants in the country. A statement by Tripoli's Interior Ministry on Wednesday said the suspects had been detained for the attack on the man, who has not been named. War-torn Libya has repeatedly been accused of being a hostile environment for migrants and refugees, many of whom pass through the country in an attempt to reach Europe. Many are intercepted by European authorities and returned to Libya. Last month, Amnesty International released a report detailing horrific cycles of abuse of migrants in Libya, including unlawful killings, enforced disappearances, torture, and rape. Cardinal George Pell met Pope Francis in Rome for the first time since his conviction for child sexual abuse was overturned. The Vatican ex-treasurer 79 was the most senior Catholic figure ever jailed for such crimes, but the conviction and 6-year term were overturned in April. The cardinal, who always maintained his innocence, had left the Vatican in 2017 to fight the charges against him in his home state of Victoria. His case had rocked the Catholic Church, where he had been one of the Pope's most senior advisors. Israel has approved a plan to bring 2,000 Ethiopian Jews to the country, making a major step towards ending a decades-long saga over their fate. They are part of about 8,000 members of the Falash Mura community who have been waiting to come to Israel for years. The community descends from Jews who were converted to Christianity by European missionaries in the late 1800s. They have since returned to practicing Judaism, but are not officially recognized by Israel's Interior Ministry as fully Jewish. Known as Falash Mura, their right to settle in Israel is a contentious issue, as their background rules out automatic citizenship available to most Jews. However, they have only been allowed to emigrate to Israel on a case-by-case basis, and thousands remain in camps in Gondar and Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. While some Ethiopian Jews in Israel support their right to settle there, others object, seeing them as non-Jewish Ethiopians. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has promised extensive reforms amid protests against police brutality. He also promised justice for victims of police abuse and an investigation into the death of a protester in Oyo State. Demonstrators have long called for the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, to be broken up, but they remain unhappy following Sunday's announcement that officers are being redeployed to other units rather than being disciplined. The protests have continued for a sixth day, with eyewitnesses saying police shot dead a protester in Lagos's Surulere neighborhood on Monday. Over the weekend, protests against SARS spread to Europe and Canada after reports of unlawful arrests, torture, and shootings. Renewed fighting has shattered a ceasefire between Armenia and Azerbaijan in the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region, which is internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan, but is controlled by ethnic Armenians. Reports say nearly 500 people, including more than 60 civilians, have been killed in renewed fighting which escalated last month. Armenia and Azerbaijan fought a 6-year war over Nagorno-Karabakh, which ended in 1994 with a ceasefire, but no peace treaty. Malaysian maritime authorities stopped 6 Chinese fishing vessels in Malaysian territory, detaining 60 Chinese nationals. Their Chinese-registered vessels were en route to Mauritania, West Africa, when they trespassed in Malaysian waters. Malaysia reported 89 intrusions by Chinese Coast Guard and Navy ships between 2016 and 2019, as tensions continued to escalate between the United States and China over Beijing's claims to most of the resource-rich South China Sea, which is also a major trade route. China's Ministry of Commerce said the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, and China have become each other's largest trading partner, with total trade from January to August reaching $416.5 billion US. But tensions between the bloc of Southeast Asian nations and China remain over aggressive moves by Beijing throughout the 1.3 million square mile South China Sea, almost all of which is claimed by China. European Union foreign ministers backed a Franco-German plan on Monday to impose sanctions on Russians suspected of poisoning Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny with a nerve agent. They say they have not had a credible explanation from Moscow for what the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, said was the presence of the banned Soviet-era nerve agent Novichok in Navalny's body. Diplomats say the countries plan to propose sanctions on several Russian GRU military intelligence officials. In financial news, U.S. stocks rose Friday to end their best week since July, as investors remained optimistic over prospects for another round of fiscal stimulus from Congress and the prospects of a Biden lead. U.S. wholesale inventories rose by 0.4% in August as companies began to stock up again to replace dwindling supplies. Advanced Micro Devices, AMD, is in talks to buy rival chipmaker Xilinx Inc. in a deal that could be valued at more than $30 billion and mark the latest big merger in the rapidly consolidating semiconductor industry. European stocks closed higher as investors tracked U.S. stimulus stocks, with shares in France leading the region. Rolls-Royce surged 14% following a rights issue announced last week, while Pandora shares climbed more than 17% after the company hiked its profit guidance. The London Stock Exchange agreed to sell Milan's Borsa Italiana Stock Exchange to Euronext for 4.3 billion euros, or $5 billion. Oil prices were on track to climb 10% this week as Hurricane Delta shut over 90% of production in the Gulf of Mexico. In currencies, the USD index was down 0.6%, while the Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index declined 0.7% to 1,162.6, the lowest in more than 3 weeks, on the biggest drop in 6 weeks. Green bonds may have a starring role in the recovery from the coronavirus recession. Interest in green bonds has increased in recent months as investors seek out securities that can generate returns and help the environment at the same time. Governments around the world are including environmental projects in their coronavirus recovery plans, which need to be financed by taking on enormous amounts of new debt. At the same time, the upheaval caused by the pandemic is encouraging companies to intensify their focus on addressing societal and environmental issues. Green bonds are similar to traditional fixed income securities, but the money they raise must be spent on climate, environment, or renewable energy products. The bonds first arrived on Wall Street in 2007, but the coronavirus pandemic has led to a new surge in interest. The value of green bonds issued in the first 9 months of 2020 surged 12% over the previous year to more than $200 billion. Researchers in Canada gave 50 recently homeless people a lump sum of 7,500 Canadian dollars, nearly 5,700 US dollars, and then followed the recipient's life over 12 to 18 months and compared their outcomes to that of a control group who didn't receive the payment. The preliminary findings, which will be peer-reviewed next year, defied conventional wisdom that giving cash to the homeless would be squandered or spent on harmful habits. They show that those who received cash were able to find stable housing faster on average. By comparison, those who didn't receive cash lagged about 12 months behind in securing more permanent housing. In addition, those who received cash were able to access the food they needed to live faster. The recipients spent more on food, clothing, and rent, while there was a 39% decrease in spending on goods like alcohol, cigarettes, or drugs. A small aircraft carrying 400 kilograms of cocaine crashed in central Mexico after a high-speed airborne chase by military helicopters, and 2 people aboard died. Monday's crash came less than 2 weeks after a business jet reported stolen in Mexico crashed in a Guatemalan jungle near a hidden airstrip, leaving 2 men dead near an onboard stash of drugs and weapons. Efforts continue in Tanzania to extinguish a fire that broke out on Sunday on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest peak in Africa. The The cause of the fire is not clear. The efforts have been hampered by the altitude, as well as strong winds and dry weather, which have caused the fire to spread quickly. A surfboard was found at Wiley Bay near the town of Esperance in southwest Australia, and a search was underway for the man who had been riding it. A witness called to say they saw a shark attack a person, an ambulance service spokeswoman said. We went to the scene. I understand they still haven't found anybody. A 17-year-old girl was killed by a shark at the same spot in 2017. A breed of hairy caterpillars, considered the most poisonous in the U.S., have been spotted in Virginia. Bus caterpillars look soft and furry, but have hidden sharp spines that can stick to human skin that can cause symptoms including intense pain, itchy rashes, nausea, and vomiting when touched or brushed up against. The hairs of this caterpillar are actually venomous spines that can cause a painful reaction if touched, the State Department of Forestry said. Tom Parker, a 32-year-old British singer who spent 5 years as part of the popular boy band The Wanted, has revealed he has an inoperable brain tumor. Parker, who announced earlier this year that he and his wife are expecting their second child, told fans he has a grade 4 glioblastoma tumor and is undergoing treatment. The average survival time for patients with a grade 4 glioblastoma, one of the most serious kinds of tumors, between a year and 18 months. Unseeded and number 48 in the world, Iga Swiatek, 19 years old and 3 months out of high school, beat 4 seed and world number 4 Sofia Kenin 6-4 and 6-1 to win the French Open, her first Grand Slam championship. In the men's draw, 2 seed Rafael Nadal won his 13th French Open and his 20th Grand Slam, overall tying Roger Federer with the men's singles slams, beating 1 seed Novak Djokovic 6-0, 6-2, and 7-5 in the men's finals. Lewis Hamilton equaled the all-time record for career Formula One victories by winning the Eiffel Grand Prix on Sunday, tying Michael Schumacher with 91. It was his 7th win in 11 races so far this season for the 35-year-old, who is on track to break the record with 6 races remaining this year. The 16 out of 30 teams in the Major League Baseball playoffs have been reduced to 4. In the American League Championship Series, the Tampa Bay Rays face the Houston Astros, and in the National League Championship Series, the Los Angeles Dodgers face the Atlanta Braves. The winners will advance to the World Series. Hall of Fame left-hander Whitey Ford died at the age of 91. He was known as the chairman of the board for his stylish pitching and big-game brilliance on the New York Yankees team that dominated baseball in the 1950s and early 60s. The 1961 Cy Young winner pitched for 11 pennant winners and 6 World Series champions, winning 236 games, the most ever of any Yankee. He had a career winning percentage of .690, the best among pitchers with 200 or more victories in the 20th century. Joe Morgan, the 5'7" second baseman who led Cincinnati's Big Red Machine to World Series titles in 1975 and 1976, died at the age of 77. The 10-time All-Star Game selection was an all-round offensive force, hitting 268 home runs, stealing 689 bases, and, with his keen eye at the plate, forced pitchers to walk him 1,865 times, resulting in a career on-base percentage of .392. Morgan also won 5 Gold Glove awards as his league's best fielding second baseman. This